Hello and welcome to K-Philosophy World Reinterpretation. Tonight we begin with a simple question. Does reality exist outside consciousness? Open your eyes. You see a tree. Close your eyes. The tree can appear again. So where does the tree you experience really appear? Outside you or within consciousness? In this deep philosophy audio, we will explore perception, the observer, Kant, Hegel, Gerald Edelman, and the strange boundary between consciousness and reality. Get comfortable, and let's begin.
You know, you walk outside at night, you look up at the sky, and you immediately feel it, right?
Oh, yeah, that overwhelming sense of scale.
Exactly. You see just thousands of stars, and you start thinking about the galaxies beyond them. And you are instantly reminded that you are this tiny, completely insignificant observer.
Right. Just a little speck of biology.
Yeah, just living inside this giant, ancient universe. I mean, it is the most basic assumption of our daily lives, isn't it? The universe is just out there, massive and indifferent, and we are just little passengers riding around inside of it.
Well, it feels like absolute common sense. I mean, the external world exists out there, completely independent of us, and our consciousness just, happens to act as a window to observe it. We are born into it, we look at it for a while, and then we leave.
But what if, and this is a big what if that common sense is entirely backwards?
Yeah, it's a massive shift to even entertain.
Right. What if we aren't living inside the universe, but the universe is actually appearing within our consciousness? Today, we are tearing down the most basic assumption of our daily lives. We are doing a deep dive into this radical synthesis of philosophy, modern neuroscience, and cognitive theory that completely challenges the very fabric of where you think you are sitting right now.
It really does. It flips everything upside down.
It totally does. We're going to journey from the basic mechanics of how you see a simple tree right down to the quantum level problems of the observer. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really grasp how radical this idea is, we can't start with the cosmos. I mean, that's just too big, right?
Way too big.
Yeah, we have to start with something incredibly simple and immediate. We have to start with the actual mechanics of the human eye.
Okay, so if you are listening to this right now, let's try a really quick thought experiment. Just imagine you're standing outside and you open your eyes. There's a tree right in front of you. You see the rough texture of the bark, the branches reaching up, the green leaves moving in the wind.
Right, a perfectly normal experience.
Exactly. Now, close your eyes and just picture that exact same tree in your head. We naturally assume that the first tree, the one with your eyes open, is real, and the second tree is just a projection happening in your mind. But our sources ask a really wild question. Did that first tree ever actually appear outside your direct experience?
And this is where the factual mechanics of the human eye come into play, and frankly, where things get slightly uncomfortable when you really break them down.
Uncomfortable how?
Well, when you look at that tree, you casually say, I see a tree, but a tree does not physically enter your eyes.
Right. There are no tiny branches scraping through your pupil.
Exactly. No miniature green leaves are traveling along your optic nerve to be delivered into your brain.
Yeah, no tiny lumberjacks inside your head making sure the wood gets delivered to your visual cortex.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Think about what is actually happening physically. What reaches your cornea is just light. It's just photons bouncing off the environment. The photoreceptors in your retina, the rods and cones, they respond to these patterns of light, and they trigger a chemical cascade.
Okay, light hits the eye, chemical cascade. Got it.
Right, and that cascade transforms the light into electrical impulses. But here's the critical point. An electrical impulse is not green. An action potential traveling along a nerve fiber does not have leaves. Your nervous system is receiving and processing electrochemical signals in total darkness.
Wait, total darkness?
Yes. I mean, the inside of your skull is pitch black. Your brain has never actually seen light. It only receives electrical codes. So your nervous system is receiving signals, but it is not receiving a finished tree.
Oh, wow. It reminds me of how a generative AI system works.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison. How so?
Well, if you sit down at your computer and type a prompt into an AI image generator, let's say you type, "a lonely tree on a hill beneath a red sky," those words you just typed don't physically contain a tree.
Right, it's just text.
Exactly. The color red isn't actually stored inside the letters RED. The prompt is just pure information. But the AI system takes that really limited string of text and generates this incredibly complex, vivid visual world on your screen. The human eye seems to operate in a very similar way. It receives light, which is just raw data, but your consciousness experiences a fully fleshed out world.
What's fascinating here is the sheer magnitude of the gap between that incoming sensory data and your finished conscious experience.
That's massive, right?
It really is. Imagine standing on a hill at sunset. You see the mountains, the clouds turning orange, a river reflecting the sky. You say, I see the world. But you do not experience neural signals. You don't look at the horizon and say, wow, what a beautiful pattern of neuronal activity.
That would be a weird sunset to watch.
Right. You experience a sunset. The brain doesn't receive a ready-made visual world. It receives electrical pulses, and somehow the output is a structured reality. The input is light. The experience is a world. We really have to ask what actually happens between them.
It's wild to think about. Next time you look out a window at a landscape, really let that sink in. You aren't just passively watching a movie of the world. Your consciousness is actively constructing that landscape from raw data. But if our brains are generating the output from this sensory data, do we ever actually see the real world exactly as it is?
That is the exact question that has haunted philosophers for centuries. I mean, more than 200 years ago, Immanuel Kant placed this at the very center of his work.
Right, the whole thing in itself concept.
Yes, the ding and sich. Kant argued that we only ever know phenomena, meaning we only know things as they appear to us under the specific conditions of human cognition.
Hold on, let me make sure I understand this. You're saying we never get the raw, unfiltered data, like we're always looking through some kind of filter.
Yeah. It's more profound than just a filter, actually. Kant argued that space and time themselves aren't just objective features of the universe that we casually, passively copy into our minds. Space and time are the actual forms through which our human sensibility structures experience.
Okay, you're losing me a bit. Space and time aren't out there in the universe. They are like how we process things.
Think of it this way. If you wear blue-tinted glasses, everything you see is blue. The blueness belongs to the glasses, not the objects you're looking at.
Okay, that makes sense.
Kant is saying that space and time are like those glasses. They are the built-in software of human cognition. So that tree you're looking at, you are experiencing it under the spatial and temporal conditions that make human experience possible. You can never see the unprocessed thing in itself because the moment you look at it, the moment you measure it or photograph it or, run it through a detector, it must conform to human cognition.
Because the act of measuring it is a human act.
Exactly. It becomes an appearance in space and time. Kant essentially drew a strict boundary around human knowledge, saying we can never cross over to see reality completely independent of our own observation.
But surely other philosophers push back on that. Because, the idea that we are forever cut off from actual reality feels a bit bleak.
Oh, they absolutely did push back, particularly during the era of German idealism. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel stepped in and challenged this permanent, unbridgeable separation between the subject, which is you, the knower, and the object, which is the tree, the known.
Okay, what did Hegel say?
Well, he argued that the subject and the object aren't just two isolated islands that can never reach each other. He believed they are mutually dependent.
Mutually dependent. How? Like if I'm looking at a tree, I'm definitely a separate thing from the tree. I can literally walk away and the tree is still there.
Right, but Hegel would argue that the object is only understood through its relation to the subject. A tree is only a known object because there is a knower. And conversely, the subject only becomes a knowing subject by relating to an object.
Oh, so you can't be an observer without something to observe.
Exactly, they define each other. You can't separate the dancer from the dance.
Wait, so if the subject and the object are connected like that, where does that connection actually happen? Because experientially, if I look at a tree, I feel like I'm standing right here and the tree is way over there. There's real physical distance between us.
And that distance is exactly what Hegel would say is part of the unified experience.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because as you say that, it reminds me of a film analogy from our sources. It's like being in a movie theater.
Go on.
If you're watching a film, and inside that movie, there's a man, the subject, looking at a tree, the object. Within the logic of the story, they are physically separated by, say, 50 feet of distance. The man is here, the tree is there. But to me, the audience sitting in the theater, both the man and the tree and the 50 feet of distance between them are all appearing flat on the exact same two-dimensional screen.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Within the story, they are separate. The man and the tree are distinct entities. But from a higher level of observation, they both belong to a single field of presentation. The distance between them is an illusion created by the medium itself.
It makes me think about dreams, too.
Oh, dreams are the perfect example for this.
Right. Think about the last time you had a really vivid dream. You're walking down a street in a city, you feel like you are here, and a giant skyscraper is there. It feels entirely external. It feels completely physical. You might even touch the brick and feel it scrape your hand or feel the cold wind on your face.
And it feels completely undeniable in the moment.
Totally undeniable. But then you wake up and you realize that the observer in the dream, the quote-unquote you that was walking, and the building you were looking at, and the cold wind, all of them appeared within one single experiential field in your own mind.
Which reveals something philosophically crucial. The mere experience of an external world, complete with distance, space, and other people, does not prove that the world exists exactly as it appears independently of consciousness.
Right, because the dream felt just as real.
Exactly. A subject and an object can appear to be totally separate, while the entire distinction between them is actually happening within one unified field of experience. The dream feels absolutely real and external until you wake up and recognize the container it was happening in.
Okay, philosophically, this unified screen makes total sense, but I'm a physicalist at heart. If I cut open a brain, I don't find a little glowing screen in there projecting a movie. So how does the physical gray matter in my skull actually pull off this illusion? Are we just making philosophical leaps here, or is there hard biology backing this up?
Neuroscience makes this even more compelling, though obviously much more complex than a literal screen. The work of Gerald Edelman is crucial here, specifically his theories of neural Darwinism and re-entrant signaling.
Neural Darwinism, wait, like survival of the fittest but for brain cells.
Essentially, yes. Think of it like natural selection happening inside your head. When you are born, your brain overproduces neural connections. It's a chaotic, dense web.
It's just a mess of wiring.
Pretty much. But as you experience the world, the neural pathways that are useful, the ones that successfully help you navigate your environment, they get strengthened. The ones you don't use weaken and die off. You are literally evolving your own unique perceptual lens based on your interactions with the world.
So my brain isn't just a standard issue camera that everyone gets at birth. My camera is physically wired by my specific past experiences.
Precisely. And this is where re-entrant signaling comes in. The brain doesn't just process information in a straight line, like light hits the eye, goes to the visual cortex, and boom, a picture.
It's not a conveyor belt.
Right. It's not linear. It uses dynamic feedback loops. Different areas of the brain are constantly talking back and forth to each other in real time. Your memory, your emotional state, what you are paying attention to, all of these continuously loop back and alter the incoming sensory data before you are even conscious of it. The brain is actively constructing the perception on the fly.
Wow. So the brain isn't just taking a photograph. It's actively painting the picture, using the colors of my memory and biological state.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it dismantles a very stubborn myth in how we think about ourselves, the homunculus.
The little person in the brain, the guy sitting at the control panel.
Right. We all intuitively feel like there is a me sitting right behind our eyes looking out at the world. But neurobiologically, there is no tiny observer sitting inside your head watching a movie screen of the outside world. There is no central control room where all the data gets assembled and presented to a boss.
Because if there was a little observer in my brain watching a screen, you'd have to ask, well, how does that tiny observer see who is inside their head watching their screen? It would require another observer and another in an endless loop. It's turtles all the way down.
Yes, it's an infinite regress. It solves absolutely nothing to imagine an observer inside the observer. The visual perception arises through the massively integrated looping neural activity itself.
Which leaves us with a really uncomfortable truth to synthesize here. If there is no little person in your head watching the movie of reality, then the movie and the watcher must be the exact same process.
They have to be.
Visual perception isn't something being shown to you. It is an integrated neural activity that is you. The subject and the object are happening in the same biological firing.
And that biological reality forces us to confront how we view the entire cosmos. Science has done an incredible job mapping the universe. We've gone from tracking subatomic particles to mapping the cosmic microwave background radiation. We have a cosmological timeline that spans 13.8 billion years.
Right, the standard materialistic timeline. First, there was the universe. Then matter formed. Over billions of years, that matter gave rise to life. Life slowly evolved brains. And finally, brains produced consciousness.
That's the accepted model, yes.
In that model, consciousness is the ultimate late arrival. It's just this tiny, fragile, almost accidental flame flickering in a massive, cold, ancient cosmos.
But this raises an important question, and it might be the greatest scientific blind spot we have. What is present in every single one of those scientific discoveries?
A scientist making the discovery.
Yes, an observer. Every telescope measurement, every fMRI brain scan, every mathematical model of the Big Bang requires an observer to interpret it. The scientist studies matter, but the scientist is an observer. We say things like, consciousness is nothing more than brain activity. But that sentence is a claim that is entirely formulated, spoken, and understood within consciousness.
Hold on, I want to push back on that a little bit. We have evidence of stars that died billions of years before the Earth even formed. We have fossils of dinosaurs. We know the physical universe existed before any human brain was around to look at it. You can't just wave that away, right?
Oh, I'm not saying those things don't exist. I'm pointing out a fundamental limitation of our epistemology, our ability to actually know things. Has any scientist ever stepped completely outside of consciousness to verify a reality that is entirely independent of it?
Well, yeah.
Can you prove the universe exists outside of an experience of the universe without using an experience to prove it?
No. I guess you literally can't, because the act of proving it is a conscious act. The moment I try to measure it, I am using my consciousness.
Exactly. It is structurally impossible.
So what does this all mean? If we can never step outside of consciousness to verify the universe, what if we have the timeline completely backwards? Our sources actually brought up an ancient Buddhist Yogacara philosophy that deals with exactly this, specifically the concept of Vidyaptimatra.
Right, which translates roughly to consciousness only.
Right, or the East Asian expression, only consciousness, no independently experienced external object. Now, to be clear to anyone listening, they aren't saying the world is fake or that the chair you were sitting on isn't there.
It's not the Matrix.
No, it's not the Matrix. They're asking us to consider if we have reversed the causal chain of reality. Instead of matter generating consciousness, perhaps consciousness is the prerequisite field that allows matter to be known at all.
It is a profound shift in perspective. Yes, we can describe a universe that existed 13.8 billion years before human beings. But the very concept of 13.8 billion years is a concept that only has meaning now within consciousness.
Wow, yeah, that's heavy.
The scientific models we build of a universe without an observer are, ironically, always held by an observer. We have accepted the material chain so quickly, universe creates matter, matter creates brains, brains create consciousness. But from the strict standpoint of actual verifiable knowledge, consciousness comes first. It is the field where observation happens, perception occurs, and the universe becomes known.
This completely flips everything upside down. Think about where we actually live. Picture those famous images of Earth from space. You know, the pale blue dot.
Very iconic imagery.
Right. You look at that and naturally conclude, I am a tiny human being living on a rock inside the Milky Way galaxy. Physically, that makes total sense. But if we follow this logic to its absolute limit, where is your concept of the Milky Way? Where is your understanding of an expanding universe? Where is the very idea of cosmic distance?
They are appearing right now entirely within your present consciousness.
Wait, so physically we say our body is inside the universe, but experientially the universe we know appears within our consciousness. This isn't just clever philosophical wordplay. This points toward what is sometimes called consciousness field theory. It suggests that consciousness might not just be a byproduct of wet biology in the skull. It might be a fundamental field.
Now, when you say field, we have to be careful. Not a physical field like electromagnetism or gravity that you can measure with a device, but a fundamental field of appearance. It is the foundational space where time, the observer, and the observed all manifest together.
It changes the structure of reality entirely. You think you are inside the universe, but the universe as you know it is inside of you. The body appears inside the experienced world, but the experienced world appears within your awareness. It goes back to that movie theater analogy.
Exactly. The character thinks they are in the physical universe, but both the character and the universe are appearing on the screen. If we look at the whole picture, starting from the raw photons hitting our retinas, to Kant's realization that we only ever know structured phenomena, to Edelman's neuroscience proving the brain actively builds our perception, to the massive observer blind spot in physics, all of it points to the same realization. Science can never step outside consciousness to verify matter, which challenges the entire cosmological timeline. Consciousness isn't just a late evolutionary arrival. It is the foundational field in which the universe itself appears.
I really want to challenge you as you listen to this. Stop and reflect on your immediate surroundings right now. The room you're in, the car you're driving, the street you're walking down, you feel like you are in the world. But remember, the world is also entirely in your experience. You are constructing the space, the distance, the colors, the sounds. We spend billions of dollars building telescopes to look outward, searching for the origin of the universe. But maybe the greatest mystery isn't the universe itself. Maybe it's the consciousness in which the universe appears. Which leaves me with a final thought to mull over today, a thought that builds on everything we've just unpacked.
Oh, what is it?
If consciousness is truly the screen on which the entire universe appears, what happens to the universe when a single human life ends? When that individual screen powers down, does the universe they were experiencing disappear with them? Or does the fundamental field of consciousness itself continue, just waiting to project a new reality?
That isn't the ultimate question, isn't it?
It really is. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the world around you and never stop questioning the reality right in front of your eyes.
Thank you for listening to K-Philosophy World Reinterpretation. Perhaps the deepest question is not simply what the world is. Perhaps we should first ask where the world we experience actually appears. If you would like to continue this journey, watch the 2-minute question, explore the 10-minute video, or read the full chapter on WordPress. You will find all 3 links in the description and pinned comment below. One question can change the way we see the world. Subscribe and join us in the next chapter.